How can you find the data you're looking for? This is the main question of today's webinar. And with that, I would like to welcome you to our second webinar for EU Datathon in the 6th edition. My name is Simon Steuer. I'm a project officer in the Publications Office. And we are very happy to have today with us Els and Hagar, who will present you Data Europa, which is a portal run by the Publications Office. On the portal, there's a lot of data, and how to find it, this will be shown today. For you, the main date which you need to remember is the 31st of March. So end of March, you will need to submit your idea, and until then, you only need to tell us which dataset you want to combine with which dataset, and what's the idea of your app. The total prize funding is €250,000, with each challenge of 25,000 for the first prize. So, and with that, I would like to give the floor to Els, who will tell us a bit more about the background of Data Europa.
Thanks a lot, Simon. And to make it a bit more lively, I will immediately bring you to data.europa. So data.europa, to say it very shortly, is a central access point where you can find data from EU, national, regional, local public administrations, but we also offer a whole range of other services around it. And now let me take you on a very quick guided tour to show you how this looks in practice. So first of all, you can find data on data.europa. You can access them immediately through the homepage, so by searching or browsing, or you can go to the Datasets tab, where you have some more advanced possibilities. I will not say more on this now, because Hagar will say a lot more on this in a couple of minutes. Data.europa is not only a hub for data, however, it also is the place for you to go to find information around data, and it also serves as a knowledge hub for data. So if we quickly return to the homepage and you scroll down a bit, you see that we share open data news, we publish studies, we have a very brief one, very new one published just today, so go and have a look. We have a calendar of events, and we have data stories. If you want to see more events, for example, you can just click on more. You can also access these topics by going in the Studies tab, or here under News. Under News, you will also find a link to our newsletter, to which we kindly invite you to subscribe. That way you get every 3 months an update from our site. I said that it's not only an information hub, but also a knowledge hub. And for that, we integrated the Data.Europa Academy. So on Data.Europa Academy, you can find a whole list of courses. You see around different topics. You can quietly scroll through them. So how does it look when we go in one course? For example, this one on geospatial data and API delivery. So you see there is at least one training course that consists of some reading material and video. As time goes by, more content will be added, and there will be more videos, more reading material. Some courses also offer some tools, etc. So I invite you all to go and have a look and see if there is anything for you. If you have feedback about the website, suggestions, or any questions, you're always welcome to contact us through the contact form. You find the button on top. So we will look forward for that. And with this, I give the floor to Hagar.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Els. I will start sharing my screen. Um, and so Els already introduced you to the portal, which will be the focus of today. Is actually this is a little bit of legislation in the background for the two portals. As you may know, less than a year ago, the former European Open Data Portal, one of the first data portals in the world, I would say, a consolidated portal, and the European Data Portal were merged into one. And they offer you, as you saw, data, studies and report, use cases, webinars, learning material, news and articles, and event calendar, and more. But this means that we have over 1,400,000 data sets on Data Europa now, which will be the focus of today's talk. And the question, how do we look for data and what does the search we perform actually mean is relevant. So I should start by saying that the portal is a catalog of metadata. So any query you execute doesn't look for the data itself, but to the metadata, descriptive data that has been provided about the data set. So it could be that the data set is about food, for example, but if it were encoded as talking about wild animals, you will get the wrong. I mean, you won't find the data set if you look for food. So the metadata that's encoded, of course, this was an extreme example, and we don't have such cases, but it's not excluded, let's say. So the metadata can be the same thing can be called in one way by one publisher and in another by another publisher. Some fields where we provide the metadata may be always provided for one publisher but never provided for another, and so on. So this is good to keep in mind. And as Els was showing you, already from the homepage, you can start searching for data sets. So you have the search dataset window tab where you can just enter whatever free text you desire, or you can browse by category. So the 13 categories you see in the homepage is actually a good example of what we were just saying. They are used by most categories but publishers do not always assign them. In which case, browsing for energy, for example, it could be that one national publisher publishes data about energy, but does not use this keyword, and then in that case, it will not show. Also, when you search for when you use the free text search, you can also use Boolean operators. So if you put, for example, in this example, I look for procurement with the operator and, which you can say here and or. So procurement and tenders, and I get about 20,000 data sets. But if I look for the same term in quotation marks, so the engine is actually looking for this exact occurrence. So procurement space tenders. It will not include, for example, procurement of tenders or tenders of procurement or any of that. And in fact, you only get 2 results in that case. So as you can see, by default, results are shown by relevance. So what data set is the most relevant to the words I indicated. And it's good to know how this is calculated because, again, with 1,400,000 data sets, sometimes the results are not exactly what we expected to find. So just a few words about how the relevance factor is stored. So a top score is given when the term I was looking for is in the title field. Then second best would be for if the occurrence is in the keyword section of the dataset. And the lowest point is given to when the term is included in the description. However, I should indicate that the title and description fields are indexed, so it doesn't have to be an exact match of the term. In the example here, I see tenders will also fetch tender and tendering, for example. But keywords has to be an exact match. So if you look for tender, but the keyword is tenders, it will not show up. Then after this, I will just a quick word about the filtering, the faceting that the search offers, which is very useful. This is a good way and a quick way of narrowing down the results. But they are interdependent. So if I choose, for example, in the example shown here, national data, and then I say I get a list of countries, then I choose a country, and then I see the specific catalogs that publish from that country, and so on. Let's scroll down for a minute. Here we go. So if we look for, I can start either from the homepage or from datasets. And I was looking for forest, for example. I get a lot of datasets, but this is when I would want to start filtering. So, for example, I like looking for European Union data because this gives me the results of data that's already somehow aggregated, because it's data collected for all member states, and sometimes more than that. If I look, for example, at Eurostat, with the statistical agency of the European Union, I would get a lot of relevant results. So, for example, protected forest. Then I can also, let me remove this choice. So I can do it either by unclicking, but also by removing it from here directly. And I'm re-expanding the search. I can then see by the catalogs, categories, which are the 13 icons we saw at the homepage. The name of the publisher, some keywords. These will have some more explanation of what those keywords mean. And very useful could be also the format that you want the files to be in. This is the actual data that you would be able to access after you reach that data set. There's also an indication of the license. For EU data, it's normally very open license, so either Creative Commons by 4, or for older data sets, it can also be the Commission license. Okay. So, but today I wanted to focus more on the advanced search, which can be executed via two kinds of endpoints. The one is the API, which is I'm providing the link here, and you will have it in the slide. You can also see in our frequently asked questions section of the portal, where you get the same links and even a few more. And the Sparkle endpoints, which can be accessed either with a real nice query editor we have on the webpage, or directly using this link on the endpoint of the actual triple store that stores the data. Before we start talking about how to search for things, I need to say a few words about the data model, which we use for publishing datasets on the portal, which is called DCAT-AP. DCAT-AP is the application profile of the data catalog vocabulary. The data catalog vocabulary is actually a standard issued by the W3C consortium. And the application profile was specifically created and is maintained by the SEMI community with support from the European Commission to allow an increased interoperability between data portals in Europe. So basically, all the data sets that are published on Data.europa.eu follow that model. But of course, there are some differences. These can be some local extensions. So some publisher may need a specific property to describe a particular occurrence, so they might add that to the data model. In other publishers might decide to use local controlled vocabularies. Some attributes may be mandatory for one, but only optional for others. This is all supported and accepted. But the things that are defined that have to be used in a certain way by the application profile should all be treated like that on the portal. So here you have a link for the latest edition of the standard. You could always consult to get a deeper understanding. Also, I include a link. I will do it before we post the slides, but there is also a very nice webinar that you can find via the Data Academy of the portal about DCAT-AP. Just a quick overview. So the DCAT basically it's a hierarchical model where you have a catalog which contains data sets, which are described by a catalog record. So it gives metadata about the metadata of the data set. And what we'd be more interested in seeing are the distributions, which is where we actually get access to the files. The latest edition of DCAT added most important is the data service class, which can be connected either to the catalog itself, the dataset, or the distributions. So basically, we're talking about API or Spark endpoints, any endpoint to a data service that gives access to this data. But a word of warning: it's not very much in use. So it could be that you find distributions that are actually available through a data service, but it's not described as a data service in the metadata. So the fact that the data is accessed via an API doesn't mean you will always find it defined as such. So again, a reminder: we only find the metadata querying any of the endpoints of the API or the Spark endpoint. But there is one small exception where we do actually have the data stored for some of the vocabularies, controlled vocabularies curated by the Publications Office of the European Union, and specifically the ones that are used by the standard itself, and also the NATS codes, which are also very useful. These you can actually query directly from the endpoints. And let's jump into it. So here is a query. You can all then copy and paste them from the slides which we will publish. But this is just to show you how you query the structure of the data model we were talking about. So from the catalog, in the catalog you see indicated by this property DCAT dataset. You see the DCAT dataset. Notice that this is with an uppercase, so all the classes are with an uppercase. So catalog includes this dataset, which includes via the distribution property, includes a distribution, which might have a data service linked to it, and then the data service itself links back to the dataset. So this is just an idea of the structure. Next slide, which I think could be also useful to find datasets. Talk about the thematic subject matter of the datasets, which is actually described using two properties, which we've already touched upon. The one with the 13 themes we saw on the homepage is DCAT theme. This is used with a prescribed controlled vocabulary. So the standard itself says to use this vocabulary. So in theory, it should, if this property is used, it should always include at least one term from this vocabulary, the data theme vocabulary, for which there is a link here. And DCAT keyword is a property that allows any free text literal value, basically. In the query here, we can see that we're restricting the search to this data theme term, which is a URI, like I said. Then controlled vocabulary, maybe I should indicate, it means that it's a URI, it's not actually the term. This is the URI of the environment theme. Now remember, these are all multilingual vocabulary, so it can, this term actually has already 24 labels, one for each official EU language. Whereas the keyword, being a literal text, can be in any language or can even be not defined as a specific language. So these are things you should keep in mind when looking for data sets. Next, another controlled vocabulary thesaurus, actually, I particularly very much like, which is not that widely used, but when it is, it's very rich, is Eurovoc, another thesaurus also managed by the Publications Office. Now, this is a little bit of explanation. We were talking about some of the differences. So for example, you see this one is sometimes used with the DCAT theme property we already saw before, but it can also be used with the DCT subject property. This is why in this query we say look for a data set that has a property which is either this one or that one, which leads to Eurovoc term. These are the terms that I was looking for. In this example, you can see that one of them corresponds to digital technology, digital literacy, and so on. Okay. And dates. Dates is a very complex issue because it's assigned to many classes and in different places in the metadata. Normally you wouldn't find all of them. None of them are actually mandatory properties. But this particular example has all of the dates, and it's nice to actually go through it maybe and see how it actually does make sense. Because this is the title of the data set. We can see when the record, the catalog record, which I don't know if you remember it for the first slide, is the class that gives metadata about the metadata of the data set. So here we basically see when it was last harvested onto our portal. This doesn't necessarily mean there was a change in the data set itself. It could be that we made some technical adjustment and had to reharvest because of that. So it's not necessarily really meaningful as for the data contained in the data set. But we can see that this is the last time it was somehow touched upon. Then we have modified date of the data set itself. So when was the data set of the metadata of the data set last modified, which was in December 2018. But it's again very different from when the distribution was last updated, which was 5 years before that. And there is another interesting property, which is DCT temporal, and it gives you a definition of the period of time covered by the distribution in that case. So we can see that this data set talks about a period that goes from 22nd November 2011 until 22nd of November 2012. Okay. This is the period actually covered by the data set. This is however, when the file itself containing the data was last updated. This is when something about the metadata of the data set was last modified. So for example, if a new keyword was added, it would show up here. And this, like I said, is when the harvesting was redone the last time. This is the query itself. I didn't put it in the same slide because it wouldn't fit in, but you can absolutely use it and copy it. Just note, I don't know how familiar you are with Sparkle, but with the hashtag, you can mark any note which is not actually executed when running the query. So just so you know, you can absolutely delete these if you copy and paste, but it could be also useful. Then the next query I would like to show you looks for data types of the distributions, which I think can also be helpful when you're looking for data, which, you know, for example, you would prefer to look for data coming in as CSV or XML format, so you can absolutely narrow down the research. So here, for example, I already narrowed it down to the data theme about technology. And we use two properties to describe what kind of file type the distribution comes in. The one is the cut media type, and it is associated to the list of the YANA MIME type, basically. It used to be called now it's YANA media type. It used to be the MIME type. And which is this one here is a sub property of DCT format, which comes with values using the controlled vocabulary of the applications office of file types. So in this query, you see basically the indication of the file type. It can be either indicated directly or with a label, and the URI of the file type defined by the applications office. So this query is a bit extensive, so you don't miss any of the terms, because like I said, there are some differences, and some publishers can describe a CSV file one way and others describe it in a slightly different way. So we always try to account for all the variations, possible variations. Just another note about, I will take you to see the Sparkle endpoint in a minute, but just so you know, you can download the results. By default, you get them visualized as a web page of HTML, but you can download them in any of these formats. You can see here, you can also accept headers coming in different styles. So I think we'll now go to the endpoint. To reach the Sparkle endpoint, you just go from data tab, Sparkle search. You can save queries. So for example, by default, here we have a query asking for a data set. Right clicking, I can rename the tab. So query data set. And there you go. If I want to get the results, like I said in a CSV file, I just choose here, and when I execute the query and then download, I will get the CSV file. So here are the queries we were looking at. I think I had one saved here, for example. So by saying that I want the results in CSV, for example, and then I download it, I already did it not to waste time. This is what I get. So the same results we see here. So the dataset identifier, distribution identifier, the file type, etc. And as you can see, I have them here as a CSV file. Yep. So this basically brings me to the end of the very quick introduction of how to search. But it leaves us a few minutes for questions if there are any.
Great, thanks so much, Hagar. And we have already quite some questions. Beatrice is asking, is the search case sensitive? So will it return different results in case you write something with capital or lower letters?
That's actually a good question. So again, here, this is why we need to remember that title and descriptions are indexed by Elasticsearch. So in this case, it will not be case sensitive. For keywords, it is. So yeah.
Aga is asking, what is the difference between categories and keywords?
So categories are defined as macro level grouping of semantic grouping of data sets, and there are only 13, so they're very wide subject. Keywords can be basically as being a free text field. It can be anything, so it can also be very big indication of level, but it can be also something very specific. So it's very more flexible. It's much less structured. So yeah, I would not actually run a search by starting with a keyword, but it's good to maybe start with the more controlled way of indicating the semantic category of the dataset, and then try filtering it by the different keywords. So.
Helen is asking, what is the criteria for similar datasets? She doesn't get very related datasets.
What is the criteria for what is the criteria for related datasets?
For similar datasets.
Okay, well, we have actually this is in the pipeline, because we do have. I'll share the screen again so you can see it. We do have a button showing going from one related dataset to similar ones. Let's open this one, for example. There is the similar datasets button, but we are improving the results. So for now, this one are similar, so it's not a very close match. But there is also a field you can look for over here, which is called related datasets. So if I say I'm looking for a dataset, keyword. Excuse me. Okay, I'll just paste it later. But if we say TCT relation, I'll just call it like this. We will see related datasets. So for example, I know that the dataset of the official journal in Czech is related to the Sparkle query of for all this other dataset. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's a related dataset. So DCT relation, defines semantically a real relationship between one data set to another. So you can also ask for that.
Thanks. How can I search using a keyword that is not predefined, meaning it does not appear in the left-hand side menu?
Then you would have to run a more general search. So if it's actually encoded, it would appear in the left menu. Then you're probably starting from a point where it's not showing. But you could always run a very general search. So just asking for any data set, and using specific Sparkle operator, you can also use something, a query that says a term that starts with this term, for example. So there are specific operators that Sparkle allows, which you could use in that case. One very famous one is the filter regex, which would look for a term in whichever part of the result. So yeah.
And Else is asking, can we write more complicated Boolean search in the basic search field? If yes, where do we find the syntax to use?
That is to be honest, I'm no expert on Boolean search. I imagine yes. I always use the quotation marks when I want to restrict the results, and I see the and or is already integrated in the user interface. I imagine yes, but to be honest, I've never actually tried. So
This would be nice to find out because usually it works when you put the brackets and the conditional syntax. But if we have somewhere a bit of guidance on the website on this, I think it may help.
yeah, we should actually ask for guidance.
Maria is asking, EU publishers made extensive use of Eurowalk. Do you know what's the case with national data? Do they also use it?
They do. From what I see is that unlike the EU Open Portal, where it was assigned to the DCT subject a specific attribute, most publishers that do use Eurovoc use it under the DCAT theme property, which is actually quite correct. So you would have to look for Eurovoc terms under that property when talking about national publishers, yeah, under DCAT theme.
Thanks. And Else is asking how to create Sparkle queries. Are there more examples also on the portal?
This is again one of the things in the pipeline. So I hope very shortly we will be able to share. For now we have the slides, so that's one starting point. But we will share a lot more queries on the web page directly. So going through the Sparkle page, you will have some a model queries, example of queries to run, because again, yes, it's a pretty complex model, so it's good to have some insight and assistance with it. But you can always reach out to us though.
Great, thanks a lot. To summarize, there's a lot of data on Data Europa, and the portal is done in an agile way, which means new features are coming all the time. And if you see little bugs, let us know. We are always happy to receive them and to fix them. The whole source code of the portal is actually available for free, so you can also build your own portal. And this webinar will be available on YouTube. In the YouTube description, you can also find the slides from Haga. And with that, I would like to wish you a very nice weekend and goodbye. Thanks a lot.